Great. So, welcome to all of us. Back in class in many ways, but this is a very unique, very special topic. And I'm going to start. I'm going to start to all the topics that I need to cover, from soup to nuts. And we start with technicalities, and there's going to be a lot of technicalities. So let me get going. First, you remember that I said there will be recordings. The recording I will put up on YouTube, not like usual. Usually I send you copies and you download to your computer. This will not be on your computer. This will be on YouTube, and you'll get a link for that. So will be available to you either way. Okay. Now the topic itself. Okay. So in the flyer that I sent out at the beginning, I said that we will cover these topics: background and resources, underlying principles, the techniques, more techniques, specific topic midpoints and planetary pictures. Then the dials, 300, 360 and 90-degree dial, and the software that we use to run it. Then what's called the Trans-Neptunian planets. And this is not last, but very important, not least at all, integration with traditional classic chart analysis. This is going to be a big topic with me. And you will see that when we begin to look at charts. And then also application in predictive work. So this is from soup to nuts, a whole new animal in your life, a whole new astrological world in your life. And I will show you how it ties very smoothly into what you know already with the integration part, and what it can do for you in addition to the traditional work, traditional chart. Many of you, since you know me and we've chatted in the past about this and that and the other, I always say that this technique changed my astrology big time. I cannot see my work at all without this technique. It's part and parcel of what I do. It's not something on the sideline. It's not nice to have. It's a must. For me, it's a must. And I would like to prove it to you why it's a must, so that you will never do a chart without it. This does not replace traditional. Never ever. In my work, I do traditional analysis first, and you've heard me say that, I think, in the past. Always and forever, traditional first. And you all know what I mean by traditional, the classical and so on. And only when I'm done with that, I move to this tool, and then it supplements, it adds information, it adds clarity and so on. So this is what I will attempt to achieve in these 8 weeks, to get to the point to convince you that you want to continue to use that. That is also why I suggested that you own the software, Nova Chart Wheels, for this purpose. Even though some other programs can do it or similar to that, Nova is just the best. And Nova works very well with Solar Fire run on Windows. Some people don't have Windows. They don't have Microsoft. They have a Mac. So I have another student, and he struggled to. He and I tried to see if we can make his Solarfy on a Mac work with this. It didn't. So if you have a Mac and you have Nova, then and I'll come back to all these technicalities, but I need to say it right now. If you have a Mac and you have SolarFire on a Mac, and it's called Astro Gold, it's not called SolarFire, it's called Astro Gold, and it's on the Mac. Astro Gold does not interface with Nova. There are two separate standalone. So you'll use it as a standalone. But if you have Microsoft Windows and regular solar fire and you install Nova, then it interfaces very smoothly. And I'll show you and I'll explain that. But I just want you to know, because it's a good idea for you to have your even offline, not during class, to make sure that you can use the program and enjoy that. Okay. So I'll work with you as needed as much as possible to make sure that you can use it and enjoy it one way or another, as a standalone or as a interfacing. It works as a standalone either way. But if you have regular solar fire and regular windows, it also interfaces. So you can move smoothly from one to another. That's all. So, so these are some of the initial comments. And now I want to move. This is the book that I highly recommend owning, called and you have the information, Rules for Planetary Pictures. And the URL on the right side is where you get it from. It's in Hamburg, from my colleague Michael Feist. And Michael Feist is let's say um, um, not the owner, but the one who carries the tradition of the Hamburg School. Okay, so um, I'm going to move to another document which I will send you, and that document is this one. It's my handout. It's not one page. It's a few pages. It's about the system. So this is like an overview. I'm gonna run an overview of the system. One sec. Okay. So actually, look at the title. It's my very original title from way back when I started teaching this topic. I said, combining Uranian and traditional astrology without getting lost in the clutter, because it may look like a lot of clutter when you begin to look at it. It's not. So a Uranian system, I'm reading very quickly from the screen. The Uranian system, also known in its original name, the Hamburg School, because it started there, was founded by Alfred Witte. As you can see, he lived into World War II and came to light in the series of lectures given to him in Hamburg, Germany, to the Kepler Circle in the years 1919 to 1923. In other words, early in the 20th century, he lived in Hamburg. He had very original ideas. He approached the Kepler Circle, and he spoke for them. They accepted his ideas. They became very interested, and they dedicated themselves to a continuation of that system, research, and so on. So from that point on, it became the Hamburg School, and that was the beginning between World War One and World War Two. Actually, he died in the hands of the Nazis in more or less, you could say that. He was arrested by the Nazis and eventually he took his own life. It was a very kind of sad ending, but he died through the war, in the situation of the war in Germany. Okay, so I keep reading the second paragraph. No, I'll say one more thing about the first paragraph. So he died, but the system continued. The system continued and maintained and kept through the followers and the people who were left behind. And in 1939, or maybe even 1936, in the mid 40s, okay, 1939, there was an American astrologer who traveled to Germany. He was originally from Germany, Richard Sveller. He brought the system over to the United States. So I call it emigrated. The system emigrated to the United States in 1939, and some people took it up and continued, and ever since then, we have the Uranian system uh, alive and well. All these years, you see, it's over 100 years, just about 100 years, that the system is alive and well because Not too many, but enough people took it up and found so much value in it to this day. And that's what we're doing here. So I'm saying that the Uranian system does not replace the classical traditional astrology, does not. It complements it. It complements and enhances it, adding depth to the system. And that's what I will show you in practice later. Oftentimes it brings up things that you were not necessarily thinking about, but then it draws your attention to it, and then you discover things. It helps you fine tune and discover things in a way that you couldn't even think about ahead of time. Okay. The 1 second. This document contains some highlights of this system. Okay. 1926, this was the first Congress that they had. I like to put up this picture. It's a famous location in Hamburg. I was there 2 years ago, exactly that location. So these are the original group, and Alfred Witte is is somewhere over there. Can't remember, somewhere in the picture. Anyway, the original group. Now, I'm going to skip this. This is from Michael Feist to me, correspondence. Okay. Essential books, I already mentioned. The Rules of Planetary Pictures. That's the only book that you really need. There's nothing else that you need, okay? And then it's the software, which I consider essential. I consider it essential even though some of these techniques are available in in other programs. Yes, they exist, even in SolarFire itself, but they're very poor and not good enough. Nova does it in the best kind of way, and you'll see later what I mean. Someone just joined us. Okay, that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to skip the other books for now and delve right into this one. So the Uranian system is distinguished by the following features, and I call it features. Number one, the 8 Trans-Neptunian planets. And I will touch upon these things separately, but I just want to lay it out first. The 8 Trans-Neptunian planets, the TNPs, also known as hypothetical planets or points. Next is the use of the 0 degrees of the cardinal sign, which we call Aries point or the world axis. And we use it as a personal point. I'll prove it to you. Also, the lunar nodes are considered very personal points, on the same level of the ascendant and the midheaven. Number 3, the 90 degrees and the 360-degree rotating dial graphic display. This is a major tool in what we're doing. Number 4, I'll dwell on each one of these. Emphasis on hard aspect. Hard aspect. All of them. And I will elaborate on that. Midheaven describes the eye. Ascendant describes the environment and others. This is like a departure from classical astrology where we say that when you say I, you're talking about the ascendant. There's a slight difference here, and it's very interesting. Number 6, good or bad is determined by the point of the planet, not by the aspect. Another departure from the classical. In the classical, we say trine is good and square is bad. Here, we don't use the word good or bad. We just look at the planets, not the aspect. Okay. Then number 7, intensive use of midpoints. Number 8, planetary pictures, symmetries, and so on. We'll dwell on this. Not much, not much. Number 9, interpretation of the chart by aspect on mostly without emphasis on zodiacal signs. In this system, the zodiac does not show up. It's just the planets and the aspects. Number 10, focus on solar arc direction together with transit and forecast. Solar arc and transits. Those of you who took level 2 with me and all the predictive system, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Number 11, meridian houses. In other words, a whole set of house systems that are used mostly by the Uranian system. I will not do that at all. For houses, I use regular Placidus. I use Placidus. Those of you who don't know me, I reject completely whole sign houses. Cristiano, that's for you because you may have heard other things. But if you studied with Deborah Holding, then you're in good shape. I reject whole sign houses. So when it comes to houses, houses will come up only when we look at the traditional chart. When we do the Uranian, we will not be talking about houses anyway. So it's a non-issue at this point. Okay. So this is the list of the highlights, the features. Now I'm going to move to the, let me see, because I need to move between two documents. So let me, uh, uh, okay, so I'm moving back here to my notes for the class. Okay. So I've covered these topics, aspects. Okay. So, um, now I'm going to move to another document, a third one, and it's this one. Here I'm going to discuss the aspects and midpoints and things like that. As you can see, I do not jump into the 90-degree dial. I'm preparing you for that. I'm preparing the technicalities. So once we get to the dial, we will understand what it represents, okay? So I'm discussing all these items. I'm building my case from the ground up, the technicalities. So let me go through this. What do I have here? I already discussed that. No need to discuss that one. What do I have here? No. Okay. I need to start here. Okay. We already discussed this one, the items, generally speaking. We already discussed this one. Now, anything that I need to say? No, I already discussed this one. I already covered this one. Okay. This is an interesting point. By way of background, this is still, I'm doing background here, historical background. This is the person is Johannes Kepler. And what's interesting is that Johannes Kepler, and you probably remember from my classes or from other sources, that Johannes Kepler figured out the orbits of the planets. Before Kepler, Copernicus finally established the solar system as heliocentric, the sun in the center. That was Copernicus. Now, more than 100 years later, the system was already heliocentric, sun in the center, but they couldn't figure out the orbits properly. Long story short, Johannes Kepler figured out the orbits of the planets and he established the laws of motion of the planets, etc. That's fine. That's his scientific role. He was also an astrologer and a good astrologer, and he was very interested in that. He read his own chart, his family. He wrote about it. We have a whole set of historical documents of what he did with astrology and for astrology. One of the things that he established, which is to me striking, is that by way of a different type of sensibility, he said that what really matters is the planets themselves, not the aspects, which is something I told you earlier. It's which planets are connected, not so much what the aspect is. I'm doing it in a very short way, in a very brief kind of way. So that was a very interesting principle that he established. So he paid attention to planets and aspects. He also had his own opinion about many other things, but this is not a lecture about Kepler, so I'm not going to continue. By the way, I will have a lecture exactly on these things for another group. So if you're interested, write to me and I'll give you more information. Okay. Actually, I'll tell you what the title is going to be, and it's not the first time that I gave this topic. The title is going to be Ptolemy, Kepler, and Alfred Witte, Strange Bedfellows or Great Minds Think Alike. So I draw a comparison between Claudius Ptolemy, Hellenistic, Kepler here, and Witte, 20th century, and show how there's a theme that runs through certain understanding that runs from antiquity all the way to our time. So what I'm trying to tell you is that even though Alfred Witte in Hamburg created a new approach, he did not come out of thin air, did not dream it up. It had a good foundation, historical foundation, all the way back. So I'm not going to elaborate on it too much, but you need to know that it has historical foundation, this approach. Planets and aspect. Planets matter more than which aspect they're connected with. It's the planet, not so much the aspect. No, there must be an aspect, but it doesn't matter which aspect it is, as long as there is an aspect. Okay. So this is why I bring up Kepler, and now we move here. Again, this is my introduction. Okay, so I'm going to move here. I'm going to be brief on that, but I was planning to do it later, but since it's here, I'll just go through it now. This is a list of keywords for each of these trans-Neptunian planets. So let me say something about what's called trans-Neptunian planets. First of all, are they planets? Are they visible in a telescope? The answer is no. So where did this come from? Where does the idea come from? So the short story is as follows and goes back to Alfred Witte. At some point he figured out, or he decided, but by figuring it out, that there must be another planet there. And the first one that he came up with was Cupido, the first one on top, Cupido. And it came through calculations, not through a telescope. Calculations of mathematical orbits and so on. So why even think about it? How can you even think that there must be another planet there? There's a good tradition for that. And you remember from my class, in my astronomy classes, about some of these facts. For instance, the planet Uranus, the first modern planet to be discovered was Uranus. Uranus was discovered by telescope. But then once Uranus was discovered, then the world was like a revolution in the scientific world, because until the discovery of Uranus, no new planet was ever discovered. It was the first time ever in history that a planet is discovered. Until that time, up to Saturn was visible in the sky, and that's it. So a planet is discovered, Uranus. So the scientific mind began to say, maybe there's more planets in the sky. Maybe we can discover more. So the idea that you can discover something in the sky was new. And then, not too long after Uranus, the asteroid were discovered. The asteroid, which is a whole separate lecture that I have on the asteroid. The year was 1801. 1801, the first asteroid was discovered by telescope. The asteroid Ceres was discovered by telescope. And then in the mid-19th century, 1846, Neptune was discovered. So it came in succession. By the time Neptune was discovered mathematically before observation with a telescope. So the idea that a planet can be discovered mathematically started with Neptune, not with Alfred Witte. Started with Neptune, with people who discovered Neptune mathematically. And then so Neptune was discovered. And then in Hamburg, the Witte came up with his Cupido, also discovered, determined, not discovered, determined mathematically. That's in the 20s. And in 1930, Pluto was discovered much later, also mathematically. So this was the beginner tradition of it's okay to look for planets in the sky mathematically, and they did. The thing is that both Pluto and Uranus are observable and Neptune is observable in telescope. These have not been observed. So that's one of the reasons that many astrologers don't want to hear about it. They say it's nonsense. It's hypothetical. It's nonsense, especially in England, by the way. People, if you're connected with English astrologers, they really don't like it because it's hypothetical. Yes, it's hypothetical because we have not seen them by telescope, but do they work? 200%. Do they work in the chart? And I'll prove it to you. It's there. It's amazing what you can get from using these in a chart. So all this, I try to tell you, to give you a brief description of where it comes from and how it's based on the idea that thing thing can be discovered mathematically because the observation of the orbit, how the orbit is, if there's any influence of the orbit of on another planet. So it can be discovered mathematically, and the only what remains is to use it in the chart and see if it works. That's it. So all as a Uranian astrologer, the Uranian astrologer like me, we don't bother with that anymore. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I know it works and that's good enough. But when you first encounter this, you always ask yourself, is it possible that it should work? Why would it work? Where is it? What is it? It's a weird animal. But once you begin to use it, you stop thinking about it. You just use it. So look at each of these names: Cupido, Hades, Zeus, Kronos. There are 8 of them. This is 4. Look at the number of years of their orbit. Cupido is the fastest, 262 years. So you'll not get a Cupido return in your life, not even half a cycle. So these things move very slowly by transit. They move, but very slowly. So how do we use them in the chart? Mo big two two important ways. One in the natal chart, especially on the 90-degree dial, and also by solar arc. By progression, forget it. They move like say a minute and 50 years because they move very slowly. By secondary progression, don't bother. But by solar arc, they're hot. As you know, or same as the other planet, the slow moving planets, we use like Pluto and the others by solar arc, they do wonders. So this is a comment about the length of time, their orbit and their revolution. Okay. So now the keywords. Each one is a list of keywords. Hold on. Who joined us? Someone joined us. I heard the bell. One sec. Let me. Okay. Okay. So in many ways, most of them have affinity or similarity with traditional in something, okay? As you will see. So those similarities and those associations and those affinities help me when I do comparison with the traditional chart. And we will see that later on. But here I'm going to read the keywords as is by itself, not in relation to the traditional astrology at all. And each one of them has what I call an essence. and you see next to each one I wrote in a red font, what's the essence, like a fundamental core principle around which the whole thing revolves, around which all the keywords revolve, like a primary indication in some way. So I'll start with Cupido. And by the way, you're getting this recording, but you're also getting the other document I told you, which has all these words, okay? All of this is in a separate document, so you're getting it after tonight. Okay. So I start with Cupido. Marriage, I'm reading through it. If I have to, I'll stop with for comments. Marriage, family connections tend towards marriage, need togetherness, socializing, bringing together, a unifying drive, union, community, clubs, social groups, company and corporation. It can, because it has the component of people together, it has the essence is togetherness, then even a company, a business company also falls under that heading. Okay. And the essence, unifying union, marriage, and art. The book says that it has art, and a colleague of mine also reads it as art. I have not been able to see it as a major art indicator, but I have it here just because it's there. But the other keywords, the marriage, the family, the fact that the tending to be in a group, togetherness is very strong in Cupido, super strong. Okay. Obviously, in your mind, you can say, well, what would it fit in the traditional? Maybe a strong seventh house, maybe a strong Venus. See what I'm doing? I'm already giving you cross reference. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
I call it cross reference. And the cross reference is not because it's the same planet. It's the same notion. It's a similar notion. There's a cross reference. That cross reference helps you go between traditional and Uranian, get the benefit of both. Only this morning it happened to me. I was doing a reading and it came up to a chart and I said, oh my God, it's uncanny. Okay. It's that what I call the cross reference. I read it. I read for a client. I didn't even look at the Uranian at that point. I couldn't. The setup was wrong, not right. So, and I heard the story, and in my mind I said, "This I have to go to the Uranian and take a quick look because it sounds like this and this," and it was like jumped off the page. Exactly what I assumed came up because of that cross reference. Because I heard something and said this would be this and the Uranian, and it was. It was one of these magical moments when you test astrology and it works. This is a test for astrology, also for me and for astrology. This to make an assumption and then it works. You find it. And that had to do with Hades, the next one. Okay. So next is Hades. By the way, Cupido, just the name Cupido, think of Cupid, the little angel with a bow and arrow who unites lovers, in Renaissance and art. It's like Cupid, the arrow of Cupid that brings people together in love. Now, Hades, just think of the name also. Hades is the Greek name of Pluto. Pluto is the Roman name and Hades is the Greek name, right, everybody? Everybody yell yes?
Yes.
Nod? Okay, good. So, so it's exactly that. It's the another shade or shadow of Pluto in a number of ways. So I'm reading secrets, the less savory side of life that is kept hidden, the illicit, the illegal side. See that? Super critical, not critical, super significant. These words. Actually, Hades is the only one of these 8 that has some kind of negativity, a very intriguing one. The others are just about nothing wrong with them. I'm saying this because people who do not know Uranian think that Uranian is dark and it's difficult and it's morbid. None of that is true. Not at all. Okay. So this is Hades, the illicit, illegal, whatever. Another layer is servitude or servant, service position. So the first words are kind of negative. You don't, it's not a wonderful thing to find in a life. But to be of service, that's not terribly negative. It's a situation. Um, Next is another thing that's not negative, antiques, old of the past. I call secondhand, used by others before. That's another layer of Hades. This is again a little bit negative, lowly, unsavory, in bad condition, dirty, dejected, unpleasant. So this is belongs to the unpleasant words. A junk, garbage, ruins, slums, sewer, etc. Okay. Poverty, lack, want, suffering, illness. So out of all these keywords, this one is this one is really not negative. All the others are more, let's call them challenging, to be polite, okay? And so when I look at Hades in a chart, I pay a lot of attention when Hades makes an aspect with personal points because of all these things. It always tells the story. Okay. Now the essence I wrote, the shady illicit side, lack and want, not stuff that you want in life. Next is Zeus. Zeus is the Greek name of Jupiter. Jupiter is the Roman, and Zeus, the pronunciation is Zeus. Zeus. I used to say Zeus. German would be Zeus, I suppose. But
Yes.
um, okay. Either way, in English we pronounce it as Zeus. Look at the glyph. It's in brown on the side. It's a cross and an arrow shooting up. Zeus is fiery. Zeus is very positive, very fiery energy. And I'm reading the keywords: leadership, fiery, creative force, creation, procreation, which means fertility. It also has to do with production, with being productive, productivity, and energetic work and activity. So it's very energizing in a positive way. The book also says purposeful activity, which I like a lot. In other words, it's not scattered; it's energy, but directed at a goal. It's very focused. Directed energy, controlled power. This is interesting. Sometimes I've seen that. Firearms and weapons. There's fire in Zeus. Why firearms? There is a proximity, affinity, you name it, to Mars. There's something Martian about it, okay? And because of the Martian, it can be even firearms, like even weapons. You don't know too many people who work in the weapon industry. I know that because most people living here, at least on the East Coast, we have other things to do. But some people live in a society, environment, economy that does have to do with weapons, and it sometimes it shows up. I have one chart like that shows that as being having to do with weapons, literally. Okay. Other than the weapons, we have fire and heat, machinery, fuel, industrialization. So if you put all this together, it's very positive. Production, productivity, action, purpose. It's Zeus is nice. Okay. Next is Kronos, the one and only. We love Kronos. You will too. Kronos is like the best of Saturn. Kronos is the best of Saturn. Saturn without any negativity. Kronos is the one that's authority. I'm reading the keywords. Authority, high-level position, the ruling power, heads of state or companies, in other words, the boss, the person at the top. That's Cronus. Presidential power, bureaucracy, management, hierarchies. In other words, the whole machinery of government, the bureaucracy and the whole thing. Okay, management. Authoritative, honorable. It's honorable. It's not autocratic or anything like that. It's very positive. Cronus is wonderful, honorable, dignified, independent, mastery and excellence. Independent comes from, let me keep reading and then I'll come back to the word independent. The last line says, of high quality, above average, professional. Every time Cronus shows up, there's something professional, something of quality, mastery of what you do. So if you have a mastery of what you do, if you're a master of your job, of your craft, of your skill, of your knowledge, then you get a lot of honor because of that and you can be independent. So it adds to independence. I've seen charts. There was a chart where it was solar arc Mars. Mars came to Cronus, chart of a guy. Mars Cronus. So I asked him if he's planning on starting to work for himself. Work for himself. Mars would be the work. The Cronus would be I'm my own boss. So it's work for yourself. So you can once you know the essence of these things, and you combine it with the keywords and you know your astrology, then you can come up with incredible observations because of that. So the knowledge of these keywords is very important. And as you can see, it's not too difficult to know the keywords because if you start with the essence is your starting point. For Kronos, the essence is high level mastery and authority. And if you remember these keywords, the rest is derivations, not difficult to remember. Okay, let me continue with the others, and then once I do the others, then we're home free on this topic. So the next four. Okay, the first four was discovered and contributed by Alfred Witte. The next four were proposed by someone else from the same group. Who worked with the same Hamburg group, but someone else, Friedrich Segeron. The thing is that Alfred Witte was not crazy about it at first, but he slowly accepted it. So eventually, these four were also accepted and were integrated into the system. And the book that you have, I hope you have it, contains all 8 of them. So let me go through these 4. Next is Apollon. Look at the glyph of Apollon. By the way, I forgot to say about the glyph of Kronos. You know what I like to call Kronos? The man with a hat. The man wearing a hat. First of all, it looks to me that way, but there's another reason. You know, nowadays people don't wear hats. Men don't wear hats usually, even women. But in the old days, let's say that's 100 years ago, people wore hats all the time. And a hat is a symbol of authority. Policemen, to this day, policemen wear hats. In the army, soldiers and commanders wear hats. And the hat is a symbol of power. Think of all the great military leaders. They had a hat with a big feather and so on, the big plume. So a hat over the head makes the head look bigger, and you become the head. It's emphasis on the head. So the man with the head. Here's a little funny joke. Not joke, anecdote. I read for a woman one time, and Cronus was very important in her chart, either her chart or her husband's chart, one of them. And then it turned out in that chart, the guy, her partner, who was a partner, was the head of a not a bank, a big internet. big, big, high level in the financial world. Bigger than a bank, okay, maybe World Bank or something. Very high level in the financial hierarchy. So that was Kronos with something else. But then I said to her that about the man wearing a hat. She burst laughing. She said, he always wears a hat, always wears a hat. So it became very literal. The guy really literally wore a hat, which is unusual nowadays. But the Cronus in her chart showed how he was actually very high level in a financial organization. And that ties right into the next one that we'll discuss, which is Apollon, because Apollon is financial and a few other things. And that's what she had in her chart, Cronus and Apollon combined. And that's why I was able to say that has a high position, high level position in financial organization based on Apollon and Cronus combined. So I'm reading Science and Learning. Look at the glyph. The glyph is like a combination of Jupiter and Gemini, if you can see that on the left. You see that?
Mhm.
That should give you a clue. The learning, the science, the whole thing. So Jupiter and the Gemini combined. So science and learning, business and trade, distribution. Why distribution? Distribution spread far and wide because the affinity is with Jupiter in the chart, with the traditional Jupiter. Are you with me?
Mhm.
The association, the cross reference is with Jupiter, it's a Jupiterian element. And Jupiter really makes things big and large and international. So it has the quality of internationality, far and wide, spreading. Distribution is that I've used it literally one time. We might see that chart. Literally, the guy was actually distributing, that was his business, international distribution, literally.
Also very
Oh.
Gemini too. Just
Mostly Jupiterian, not Gemini so much. Mostly Jupiterian. The idea is that it's far and wide.
mm,
That's why Jupiterian. Next is at a great distance, expansion, enlargement, a large quantity, many, multiplicity. You see the common thread. It's many, it's a lot. It's like Jupiter plus plus. Peaceful enterprise, a cross-cultural breadth of experience. So all of it is positive. And the essence, business, expansion, and science. So if I see Apollon combined with Mercury, I will know that is a drive, a mercurial drive for learning, for instance, for knowledge, or for languages. Actually, the book that you have or will have for this combination, Apollon Mercury, will say love of language, language learning, language. Um, for Apollon and Venus, the book will say love of music. And I've seen that. It worked a few times for me. Love of music. Venus contains music. Loves to entertain, to sing, to have a nice time. So love of music is also there. So Apollon is like a positive energy that expands and helps along. It's really nice. The next one is a big challenge. Admetos. I'm sorry, Apollon. The name Apollon. Apollo, the Greek god Apollo, he was a sun god. He was one of the figures of the sun god. There was Helios and there was Apollon. Apollon was sunny, was a sunny god. Apollon was the god of the arts as well. So it's very fitting to have this name for this trans-Neptunian Apollon. So you see that even the Greek, the mythology is also here. Well, you don't think about it, but the Greek mythology is still in the name itself, just the name itself. Now, Admetos, wow, Admetos, wow. Look at how many keywords. Admetos is like nothing like we know from regular chart. Just about all the keywords, I'll go through them, do not sound like thing that we are familiar with in a regular chart. The image itself, the glyph itself, it's hard to see here, but it looks like a square with a cross inside, which is typically the glyph for Earth. You know that the glyph for Earth is a circle with a cross inside. So this is the Admetos. It has to do with the Earth, literally with the Earth. The name Admetos comes from a story in mythology which is not too well known. There was a king Admetos. And the king Admetos had a wife. There's a story there. So I'm not going to try and do the story. I urge you to find it out yourself. The story of King Admetos. But it had to do with a wife. It had to do with the loyalty of a wife. It had to do with the death of a wife. That's the historical. I think that they said that Admetos might have been even a real persona in history, but the story is in mythological. It's legendary. It's a legend. I don't know if it's real or not, but that's the story. Now, I have to say that other than the connection with the earth, because I want to say it now, not later, the earth appears in one of the keywords as you can see here. You see here, it's here, earth. But when I saw this the first time, and I saw the earth and the symbol and the name Admetos, I couldn't help thinking that in my native language, Hebrew, my mother tongue Hebrew, the name for earth is Adama, literally Adama. So I think maybe, I don't know, but if there's any language or etymological connection between Adama, the Hebrew word for earth, and then Admetos. But in my mind, it fits very well, the connection with earth in some way. So let me go through this. Um, Actually, before I do this whole long list, let's look at the essence first. The essence says make small, make things small, inertia, rotation, origins, and earth. So all these list of keywords will be around this essence. And as I read through them, you will see that sometimes you don't know what's the connection. Why is this? It's weird. Like one thing next to another, there seems to be like no connection between these things. I don't have an answer, but it's fascinating. So I start from the top. Narrowing, limiting, makes things smaller, shorter, compact, minimalism. Minimalism. By the way, each one of these keywords, I have charts in my head and think that I've seen it at work. I'm trying to do now is give you a gist of the keyword themselves. But I've seen all of them work, including my own chart. In social context, exclusive small circle. For instance, if you see Admitos with the first one we saw Cupido, which is community, then that says small community, a small group of people. See what I'm saying? You just take the word small as an adjective. Small, 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 short, limited, you name it. Okay. Next is foundation, focus, depth, nucleus, core, condensation, compression, density. It's like something that's very focused, very condensed, very centered. So the ability, sometimes literally the ability to focus, to go to the core of things, to the essence of things, it's focus, literally. I could spend a lot more time on each one of these, but I don't want to. I just want to give you the initial gist of it so we can eventually see them in charts. Next is mass, the earth, land, homeland, homeland. I've seen that work also in terms of homeland. People who go back to where they came from, homeland. I've seen it also literally by way of land ownership, physical land, land. not a high rise, not a building, the land itself. So this is also a mythos. Now, I've used this a lot. Raw original matter. Origins, primal, primeval origins, raw material, ores, minerals, and crystals. So let me talk about raw. I always love to tell the anecdote to show you how I was able to use the word raw in a real life kind of situation. The guy came for a reading. Some of you heard this from me, sitting in my living room pre-COVID, and he had a Dmitos connected in his chart with the asteroid series, and asteroid series has to do with food. The food, it's a food thing. So I asked him if he eats raw food. I combined the two words, food and raw. That's all I did. Do you eat raw food? And the answer was, that is my diet. That was the answer, clearly. Raw vegetables, raw everything. That was before vegan was popular. Now we call it vegan. It was before vegan was popular, so it was just raw vegetable. You can combine things and come up with incredible details, and that was one of them. Um, raw means unprocessed in its original state. So this is originality, but ancient, not just recent, primeval, ancient, raw material, all that is. So the keyword is raw is a wonderful, wonderful keyword here. Okay. Okay. Next is rotation, circular motion, like the earth or wheels. You know, we need to differentiate between rotation and movement. It's easy to understand in terms of earth. Earth rotates on its axis in 24 hours, the day and night. That's rotation. It's like a spindle, it's right on a spindle. It's not going anywhere, it rotates around itself. That's rotation. But Earth moving around the sun, that's not rotation, that's movement, okay? So rotation is around itself, like on the spot. So when you have this movement of around itself, you tend to kind of focus like gravitational force that moves you into the center of things. So rotation. Uh, Wheels on a car. The wheels on a car, they do both. They rotate and they move the car forward, right?
Mm.
Think about it. When you look at the wheels, they rotate on their own axis and they also move the car forward. Same as the earth around on itself and moving forward. So I remember one time thinking about it because I always try to find more examples. So, okay, that's one of these anecdotal stories. So there was a Secretary of State during the time of Clinton, John Kerry, and he was traveling in Europe. He was Secretary of State traveling in Europe, and then the news was that he was in a hospital in Europe because he had a bicycle accident. And I said, bicycle? What's this Secretary of State doing on a bicycle in France? He should be doing other things. I googled it and turned out that that's his half his life is about bicycling. He participates in races. It's his thing. It's his sport. So he does bicycling anywhere. So I looked at the chart. Admetos was there big time. Admetos, I don't remember where it was in the chart, but it was. I can dig it up. The point is that Admetos is like the bicycles, the wheel that rotates and rotates and rotates. So all I'm trying to show you how you can take the symbolism and tie it into real life things. That's one of them. And by the way, once I did that with John Kerry, went looking for other bicyclists, like what's his name, Armstrong, and then an Italian one, and then a client of mine had this, and it was all about bicycles. So it was fun. Apropos, remember cross reference. Always look for cross reference. So cross-reference for the bicycle, for the wheels, is Gemini. And I'm giving you clues as to what you can compare in order to confirm your thoughts. So Gemini is also the movement around, and Admetos is the wheels that turn. Um, the last, um, okay, the line before last, cyclical process, circulation, repetitive motion, repetitive action. That ties into rotation because when something rotates, it does the same thing all over again. Around and around and around, comes back to the same spot. So it's the symbolism of rotation. Um, the Admetos is very strong in my chart, a very personal point. So I've always had, so once I discovered this whole list of keywords, I remember thinking, trying to think of which one fits me the fits me the best, and many of them fit me a lot because it's a very personal point in the chart. So when it's a very personal point like the angles, ascendant, midheaven, etc., then these keywords work. The last line is the least favorable among people, but and I've not been able to see it at work much. Ending, death, ending, and beginning. I have not been able to see it, but maybe. The reason it has ending and death relates to that story I told you about, that the mythological story about that king Admetos, and he had a wife and she died, and this kind of, and so on. But that's the list of the keywords. So as you can see, many of them don't fit together smoothly, but they're all there. The challenge is, as always, when keywords, when we're given a list of keywords, how do you know which one works? How do you know which one to look at? How do you know which one to choose, right? Always. To this day, I still think about it. The cross-reference with the traditional helps. It helps to find what fits best. Okay, the last two, Vulcanus. Vulcanus is nice. Vulcanus is physical force, power, might, strength, overpowering influence, wielding influence. Look at the word influence. You know, nowadays on YouTube, we have all these young people who are influencers. It's a hot new item among young people. They become influencers, and they have all these millions of followers, right? Everybody, you've run into it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So I have found this to work also in that case. Actually, one of my students, you don't know her, one of my students, that's exactly what she does. She's an influencer, and it's so, and Vulcanus is so strong in her chart with the Aries point and so on. So what's this influence? It's the kind of influence that's not necessarily by twisting one's arm, not physical, not applying physical force. Is by sheer force of personality, or by your connection. If I see Vulcanus in a chart connected with the lunar nodes, and the nodes, those some of you know what I say about the node, that the nodes are connection, social and people connection. So if you have the nodes with Vulcanus, you are connected with influential people, or you are influential yourself. Are you with me?
Mhm, mhm,
That's how we put together. It's like pieces of a Lego. We just put it together. And as you can see, you put together two words. You don't need a whole paragraph. There's two words, and it's magical. Two words. Influential connection. Just because of that. So Vulcanus, the name Vulcanus is also goes back to the mythology, to the god Vulcan, who was the forger, and he forged the iron and things like that. So he was not a forger, was a I don't know, ironsmith. That's a better word, ironsmith. So it's about physical power, but also personal power. Okay. So if you have Vulcanus, let me finish the reading here. Great strength, physically, mentally, mechanically, heavy machinery, energy reserve, vitality, sustained force of activity. I like the word vitality. So if you see Vulcanus with the sun, I think of vitality, like physical vitality, the physical in the body, the ability to have enough energy in you. Okay. The last one is Poseidon. Um, Let me see if, by the way, let me finish. For Admetus, I did not have any correspondence. I did not have any correspondence with the traditional. Sometimes it looks like a combination of Pluto and Saturn, maybe. There's no direct connection from Admetus into the traditional, while the others have them. Vulcanus does not have that direct connection either, but you can always get it from a combination. Poseidon is, look at the glyph, it looks like Pisces turned around for a reason. Poseidon was the Greek god and Roman Neptune. So Poseidon is like a Neptune thing. But you know what I call it? Um, I call Poseidon Neptune minus the bad stuff. Neptune without the difficulties. Neptune is so problematic. But Poseidon is not problematic. Poseidon is very, very fine, very delicate, not always even easy to notice, but sometimes it is. I'll show you in a few minutes a chart with Poseidon. So Poseidon is light, enlightenment, seek the truth, ideology, intellect, and education. So it has to do with the mind in many ways, but not the mind by way of learning mathematics or anything. It's more like on a high level enlightenment, ideology, belief system. Belief system is also a good. So it's not a specific religion at all. It's above that. And next line says spirit, religion. It can point to religiosity, but it's not necessarily any orthodox thing, any orthodox religion. But it can be, again, the spirit is very strong. Wisdom spiritualizes and refines. And from Michael Feist, I mentioned him. He's my Hamburg colleague, and he is the torchbearer of the Hamburg school. Literally, I forgot to say that his family, his parents and his grandparents actually they participate in that Hamburg school. They go back to that 100 years ago. So he inherited the whole tradition and the publication. He publishes the books. So this whole Michael Feist is the the historian. The archive, the historian of this whole system, and he's very knowledgeable. So occasionally I ask him about things, and he says for Poseidon, he says storms at sea, ship sinking, see the Titanic. Million years ago, it occurred to me to look at the chart for the sinking of the Titanic, which is more than 100 years ago, was 1912, I think, to see if Poseidon was in the chart, because Poseidon was the god of the ocean. And the ocean is not a peaceful place. The ocean is storms and high winds and so on. So Poseidon, the god Poseidon, had to do with storms at sea, not with peaceful waters. And the Titanic sank, so it was not peaceful at all. So I saw it in the chart, and then I wrote to Michael, and Michael said yes. Even the Hamburg School people, they thought about it and they looked it up. I have not used Poseidon that way. Mm, well, I didn't look at shipwrecks recently, But I look at Poseidon a lot when it comes to spirituality thing. A lot. Out of all these eight,
Meira?
some let me finish. Let me finish. I know, Elpis. 1 second. Out of all these eight, the seven of them up to Vulcanus works for me without fail ever. Occasionally I see Poseidon in a chart and I try and I don't always get it. But sometimes I get it when it really shows up. Before I continue, yes, we have Elpis here, Elpida, and she's the authority on everything Greece. She is from Greece. She's here, and she's probably going to correct me on something about the Greek mythology.
No.
Go ahead. No.
Just wanted to know how many years Poseidon.
Oh yeah, many you can see. Let me maybe 800 years. Okay, 740. Okay.
Mm.
740. In other words, don't even bother with transits of these planets. We need to live 20 times over to get them to move. All you want to do is solar arc and natal chart. That's it, and that's when you begin to see that. So this is my take on the eight Trans-Neptunian planet eight. So while I was discussing the keywords, I was also trying to bring in what I call the cross-reference and what it compares to in the traditional. So you know to already, I want you from the start, when you look at them, from the start to think cross-reference. In case it's not clear, is everybody clear on what I mean by cross-reference? Or anybody not clear about it? Then yell. Okay. Because when I started my journey in astrology, these came into my life early on. It's one of my anecdotal stories. I studied my first studies in astrology traditional was 1978 in Israel. I couldn't continue there. I ended up coming here to New York. I found the NCGR. That was 1981. And then, in an NCGR, I went to meetings and groups and so on. And in one of those groups, someone asked the teacher if she knows about Ukrainian astrology. And then the teacher said to her, "No, my dear, it's not Ukrainian, it's Uranian." And I'm standing there listening and I say, "What? There is another kind of astrology? What is that?" I didn't even know that there could be something else. In those days, nobody knew. But we were in New York, and New York people already knew. So, long story short, I decided to look into it, and it didn't take long, maybe a year or so later. I was in a place where someone was teaching it. And for me, it was love at first sight, and I'm not exaggerating. When I say first sight, I mean first sight, said that same day, and the rest was history. Somehow it spoke to me immediately. But I still had this hypothetical question, the theoretical question. Can you add to astrology? Can you add more things? We have the classical planets. Can you add? The obvious answer is yes, because they added Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Fine, but they were planets. Can you add something that's not a planet? So I had to resolve it for myself big time. And the resolution, so on one hand, I fell in love with it immediately, it spoke to me. On the other hand, I had to resolve the theoretical, the fundamental question. And then it didn't take long for me to realize that what I call the cross reference. So you're not adding something that's not there. You're adding something that sheds more light, but it sheds such a light that you don't want to live without it. So from that point on, when I realized that I can do cross-reference and combine it into a magnificent insight, then it was smooth sailing, no problem. Smooth sailing, not because I knew everything, but because at least I didn't have the question anymore. I just needed to get more practice. The rest was just more practice. I apply the same approach to the asteroids, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. When I say asteroids, I don't mean all the million of asteroids that you see running around now. I am talking only about the first big four ones. The first four asteroids, Ceres, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta. More recently, I've developed a whole webinar just on those. But way back, the asteroids came into our lives in the late 80s. They're already big topic. In the 80s, they already came in, and astrologers began to talk about them, and conferences, on and on and on. It became a big item. Those four. And they got into the NCGR study guide and the exam, and people became well known for speaking about them, especially Demetra George, on and on. This is the four asteroids. And I had the same question to myself. What is this? Can we add something? It's only an asteroid. It's a little piece of rock flying in the sky. What is it that we're doing here? I just couldn't wrap my brain around it until I started applying the same thing that I told you here. I started applying the asteroids using the 90-degree dial, which we will do, and all the midpoints and stuff, and all this whole technical approach, but along the same line, that we're not adding something that's not there. We're shedding more light and discovering things. It's a process of discovery. So in many of the charts that I will show you, you will see Uranian, traditional, Uranian, and the four asteroids. I don't always look at them, use them, or consider them, but depending on the chart will tell me if I want to look at it at all or not, and we'll get there. But I use the same approach to include the four asteroids in the chart, and I do it only in the Uranian system. I do not do these in regular chart. The regular chart is clean, only traditional. All the other extra components I add in the 90-degree dial. So this is where I'm going to take you on this journey. Okay, we're almost done. So I want to show you a chart with Poseidon. Very apropos to these days. And here it is. Oh, that's not it. 1 second. Pope Francis. This is his chart. It seems to be an accurate chart. It's an AA chart. And we've known this chart for a while, since he was elected years back. I forget the year. When was he elected? Or how many years? Anybody remembers? 20 years? Less? More?
Yeah, 20 years sounds about right.
You're right. Okay. So, when people come to a certain high position, we astrologers go to the chart immediately, and we should, and you should. And I save them on my computers. If you are one of those who live on astro.com, please stop that. Take any chart that's of interest to you, copy to your own computer, save it in your own file, and then you can do what you want with that. You're very limited on astro.com. On your own software, you can do a lot. So I saw this one. What got my attention at the time, unrelated to Poseidon, this is a tidbit unrelated to Poseidon. What got my attention that time was obviously Uranus on the midheaven, 10th house. Obviously, that Uranus is square Venus and Neptune, Venus and the moon. That got my attention. And that fits into what they said, that he will bring new ways, more liberal into the church. Fine, some of it was there, but what really got my attention is his Saturn opposite Neptune. Quite exact. Everybody can see that. Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Virgo. What
Yeah.
I'm about to talk, some of you heard this from me already. What I'm about to discuss or tell you is not related to Uranian and not related to Poseidon. I'll show you Poseidon in a few minutes. But Saturn, Neptune, hard aspect indicates chronic illness
Mm.
or chronic health situation that's all there for a long time. And by the way, this definition I got from the Uranian system, not from the traditional. The traditional don't have that. Nobody that I know looks at that and says chronic illness. But I got it from the book, from that book. And I remember thinking about it and beginning to look at it in people's charts, and oh boy, it never failed me, not once. Ever since I discovered it, it didn't fail me even once, this observation that hard aspect Saturn Neptune indicates some serious illness for a long run, a long range. And there was the Pope, and he was elected. The whole world was talking about him. Nothing was mentioned about bad health. Nothing. His character, his history, nothing about his health. So I said, well, maybe something is wrong. Maybe I don't know astrology or something. Then a couple of years later, or less than that, I see his biography on television, and it right there and then they said that when he was around 18 or 20 or something like that, he had a serious lung disease, and I think that one lung was removed. This is exactly Saturn Neptune. It can be the lungs as well. So astrology was, it's not that I was vindicated, astrology was vindicated. So I never forgot that. And that was when he was very young. And now he passed away exactly with that Saturn station. He was in his Saturn return in Pisces, opposite at Neptune. And the recent illness was in the pneumonia and the respiratory system and all that stuff. So that Saturn Neptune acted up. Well, he was not too young, but still the my point is that the cause of that was the Saturn Neptune, the natal. So that's apropos his natal chart.
12
Ah,
years he's a
one second, one more thing. Apropos health, I'm not sure, but I think he had sciatica. Sciatica, and you know what sciatica is? Sciatica is a Sagittarius business. See, his sixth house is Sagittarius.
Oh.
Sciatica is the related to the thighs and pain in the leg because something is in the spine. A problem in the spine is pressing on the nerves. Someone wanted to say something.
the Pope is for 12 years, this Pope. He's been a Pope for 12 years.
12 years. Oh, okay, okay.
And
Well,
Myra, a quick
yeah,
question. The
yeah.
sun in the sixth house, doesn't that also take away from vitality?
Take away what?
From
But
vitality, life
vitality.
force. Hmm.
Take away. Actually, it saves. It helps. So you see, when you have a benefic, this is a completely different discussion. When you have benefic in the sixth house, then it helps. It does not. The six, any planet in the sixth house points to something about health, but it depends on if it's a benefic or malefic and things like that. That makes a difference. But I don't want. And then he has Jupiter, the ruler, in debility, so it's a different discussion.
Mm.
But that's not what he was all about. He was all about other things. So let's see what he was all about using the 90-degree dial because I'm jumping into it even though I have not explained the dial, but I want to show you Poseidon, that's all. So I'm jumping, like I said, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, being ahead of myself, but since we have to wrap up, why not? That's not him because I also did Elon Musk. Wanted to. So now I am, since some of you may know this, some of you, for some of you it might be new. So I'll speak while I'm doing it. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So when they open Nova, this is Nova chart wheel, okay? Nova chart wheel, and I need to close this and close this, and I'm gonna keep this. the traditional. And I'm going to move this one either. Okay. Neat. Okay. Clean slate. Okay. So this is I'm in Nova now. And I have his, where is this? Pope Francis. I'm clicking on it. And it opens like this with a regular chart, regular view of a chart. I don't need this. And I'm changing the view to 90-degree dial. We will discuss the dial a lot in the future, not today. Right now, I just want to show you. So the red arrow is on this. This is the Aries point. The symbol of Aries here does not mean it's the sign of Aries. It means that it's the 0 degrees of all the cardinal signs. It can be 0 Cancer, 0 Libra. It's 0 cardinal. And he has, the arrow is on the 0. And you see the red line that connects the sun on the right side and Poseidon on the left side. You see that? Poseidon.
Mhm.
Poseidon is right next to Jupiter. So you can think of them as together, Jupiter, Poseidon. So the interpretation is that the midpoint, this is the midpoint combination. Midpoint of Sun and Poseidon falls on the Aries point. This is better than anything to indicate a pope. Because the Aries point, which I mentioned earlier very briefly in the introduction, the Aries point is connection with the world. Any planet that falls on the Aries point has this quality of connection with the world. What does it mean, connection with the world? It can mean two things. First of all, it can mean that it's something that you do in public because it's public. The world can be the public in your neighborhood or the big public of the whole world. It doesn't matter. It's on a large scale. It's a connection with the world. Therefore, the Aries point can also be, I'm jumping the gun, but it's just right. Because it's that kind of connection, it can be a vocation, meaning related to work in some way, something that you do on a scale that is connection with a bigger public, not just in your corner deli, okay? Now, what does he have there? The sun and Poseidon. Sun, personal point. It's the sun. It does not require explanation. And Poseidon, the ultimate spirituality, which he does not have in you see, the 10th house does not have that, the traditional. I'm doing cross-reference here, okay? The 10th house has Uranus. Normally you see Uranus, you think of technology, computers, whatever, revolution. Yes, they said that he might revolutionize the church. But I think that the dial with Poseidon speaks volumes. And he was really, really spiritual person more than anything else. It was his life. He didn't look to become pope. He really didn't. He enjoyed being with the people. It was not about authority. It's about the spirit. So Poseidon is like a pure spirit. I can even include in this demonstration, if you spend a few more minutes, there's another midpoint there. You see the ascendant on the left in red? And there's a line from the ascendant to Chiron. Normally, I don't include Chiron. Again, I treat Chirons the way I treat the asteroid. I bring them in, or sometimes I don't, depend on what I want to look at. But I think that here it's very apropos because I'm not even talking about, if you will look at Chiron as the healing factor, the medical or the healing factor, then it's very apropos for a pope of his nature to be healing in public, like for the public, for the people, like a healing persona in some way. So the symbolism is beautiful. Other than that, He also has, now that I'm at it, he also has here, there's a black dot here, and this is Cupido. You remember Cupido?
Mhm.
Cupido, and this black dot is an aspect. It's a 22.5 semi-octile. We will do aspects. This is an aspect with the Aries point as well. So Cupido is also in this story. So what does Cupido, when Cupido is connected with a personal point like that? Again, it's the tendency for togetherness, for bringing people togetherness, for uniting, for unification. If he was not Pope or not clergy, we could say that he's maybe marriage or something like that, because Cupido has a lot to do with marriage, a lot. But because he's in the church, and that was out of the question, of course, then it's not about marriage, but it's about the other side of Cupido, which is the unionizing, the ability to bring people together for unification. There is another point at the bottom, the other end of the arrow at the bottom, very close. You see Zeus, the one with the arrow. Uh, I don't know how to tie Zeus into the Pope, but I don't know everything about him, so I'm going to leave it out. He also has, this is interesting, Moon with Kronos. I'm not going to try interpret it, but I'm pointing out that these are things that I would look at when I move into the dial. I would look for combinations with these Trans-Neptunians and what additional information it can give me. If I go back to the Sun and Poseidon and try to look for it in the regular chart, I'm not sure. If I want to compare the to Neptune, this Neptune is not exactly in an angular house. It's with Saturn. It has another story to tell. So in this case, and each case is different, in this case, the information from Poseidon and the Sun stand on its own very powerfully. And I would say that it's not necessarily so in the natal chart, in the regular chart. In a regular chart, it's interesting, but it doesn't tell you of a highly spiritual person. While the dial with this on the Aries point is highly important and highly spiritual with Jupiter as well. See what I'm saying?
Mm.
And I'm telling you ahead of time that every chart will be different. There's no one thing. I'm giving you tools for thinking about it, because no two charts will be the same. Sometimes in this case, one thing does not show in the other, but in other cases it will show in some way. Okay. Can
Yeah,
we? Yes,
isn't that a T-square with the Neptune, Saturn, and Sun?
yes, of course. That again, it's the health. If anything else, is the health. It's the sixth house and the eighth house. I mean, if nothing else, is the health. But that's not what he was all about.
And the Zeus, isn't it leadership?
Say it again.
The Zeus here in the
Mhm.
Uranian, isn't it leadership? He was
Yes, you can do that. Yes, leadership, zeal, energy, inspiring. Yes, you can add all that. Yes, you can. But this to me really stands out. The Poseidon. My eyes are drawn to it like a magnet. Okay, folks, I've come to the end of this show for tonight. We have come to the end of this. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yes. Question. Go ahead.
No question. I just said wonderful material.
Okay.
Great class. Thanks.
Uh, okay. Everybody's okay.
I have one question.
Yes. Go ahead.
So do you combine fixed star with the Uranian system, or you just like separate it in the classical chart?
Combine what? Sextile, you said?
Fixed star,
Vesta.
fixed, fixed star.
Fixed stars? No, I do not. I do not. Now, fixed stars is I suggest you don't. Well, I had a friend, Diana Rosenberg. She was the queen of the fixed stars, and she combined everything. I suggest you don't. If there's enough in the dial the way I showed you, with it, let me bring the dial up again. Let me bring the dial up again. But I'm glad you asked, because we have to draw the line. My opinion, this is Elon Musk, why not? We have to draw the line, how much you put in. When you put all the traditional and the asteroids, and then you add, you'll never see the light of day. My suggestion, treat the fixed stars differently, because we know that, since you brought it up, fixed stars, if anything, are used in a conjunctions. Best, if you want best use of fixed stars, is just conjunction. Conjunction with traditional personal points, and that's it. Don't go into midpoints, none of that. My strong suggestion, unless you want to give yourself a big headache, I suggest leave it alone. No, fixers are good, but by themselves. My strong suggestion. Now,
Yep.
let me show you, let me bring in the asteroid. I deliberately took it out. I didn't want to have too much, but let me bring it in so you can see that. This is setting. I can bring it in and out. Okay. Now everything is in. Okay. Asteroids and everything in. Okay. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. And now I have asteroids as well. Apropos, one last word. Important. Because I bring in so much into the chart. My system is color coding, and you've seen me, those of you who studied me have seen me do that. I call it color coding. The color is I call them a group. The classical, the traditional is a group. The Uranian is a group. The asteroid is a group, and they get different color. There's a reason for that. By using different color, your eyes can distinguish between them more easily. So if I don't want to look at asteroid, I don't look at the current or at the orange. I look only at the black. So you use your vision, your sense of color to differentiate. It's easier on your mind, easier on your eyes. And I do it all the time. I also have another, I call it a joke, but I mean it. I call them groups. And as a group, they have their own quality in some way. So the traditional has a quality. The Trans-Neptunian have like a quality. The Uranian, so because they're distinct groups, if I find an aspect between a Uranian planet and an asteroid, I call it intermarriage. Intermarriage between two groups, because they bring in different qualities. So it sounds like a joke, but it fits my understanding of how they have this distinct quality. I have lots of these examples, which I hope to show you in the future, but not tonight, of these what I call intermarriage, because I love the asteroids in certain ways, as you will see. They bring in some incredible information. So it's a lot of fun. When I finish the job, I take a traditional shot. Okay? I work on a client. I finish the traditional and then I move to this one. It gives you a sense of adventure. It's like a surprise. What will I see there? There's always a sense of surprise. What will it show me that I didn't see before? So it's like an adventure. It's an exciting process. I don't know of any student of mine that did not feel that way once you begin to use it. It's always exciting. It's a sense of discovery. So I will try to give you that same sense of discovery and fun doing this work. But we take it step by step. If there's no more points, I will, or questions, I'll wrap up.
Meira, I have just
Yes.
one question, please.
Yes.
In terms of mundane astrology, does this work nicely with it?
Mundane astrology I do on a much broader level, but this is very fine-tuned. But occasionally I will bring in these as well. There was the tsunami in Japan a few years back in Fukushima. I wrote an article about it, and I did the Uranian. And I connected, by the way, the article is available online, so if you want to read it, it's on I'll send you a link to that. But the point is that if you know what you're looking for specifically, why not? That particular article, because it had to do with a tsunami, and tsunami comes with an earthquake. So I looked up the combination of Uranus and Admetos. Uranus needs no explanation. Admetos, I just finished telling you about it, okay? So Uranus Admetos is like an earthquake. Admetos is the earth, Uranus is the quake. See? Two words is enough. And it showed up in that event. So the answer is yes, sometimes yes. I even did it with the recent, I tried to do it again with the recent earthquake in Myanmar. Just recent. We had, Burma. And I think I've seen also saw some Admetos-Uranus connection. You see, Julia?
Yeah,
But
that's
but but I'm very specific about these things. I don't just do everything. Mundane astrology works best on a higher level, on a broader level, on a big cycles. And I don't want to launch into this discussion. Not now. Too late. Okay?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Meira.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
If you have any, you let me know in email if you installed, if anybody still has issue with Nova and all that stuff, since we're already in the course. Let me know if you need more help or something in private email, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
So I know where you stand, okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Much.
Bye.
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 Bye.